What's going on, you guys? This is Trent here at Rexburg Motorsports, here to do another machine overview with you. Now today we are going to talk about snowmobiles. Yes, I know the sun is shining, it's warm outside, but here at Rexburg Motorsports we're just starting our Christmas in July sale, and this is the perfect time to get into a snowmobile. If you're into sleds, you know last winter was almost a nightmare trying to get into snowmobiles. Snow checks were late, in-season models were delayed. It was crazy. A lot of people ended up staying on their old sled because they couldn't get onto a new machine. Now Polaris did a really good job in that they got us a ton of snowmobiles in March. I missed the season, but that means you've got a lot of opportunities to get onto the sled that you want for this coming season. If you notice, we got a lot of crates back here. We've got a lot of machines to pick from, but the one that we're gonna talk about today is the Matryx. This was a new chassis for 2022, and this is the sled that everybody wanted to be on. Granted, every single one of our in-season models last winter was an Axis chassis, so a lot of people missed out, but this is a golden opportunity to get on the sled that you want. So we're gonna talk about this Matryx and show you all the ins and outs as to why you want to hurry up and get your sled in July. All right, so when we talk about this Matryx chassis, the first thing that we've got to talk about is the changes that Polaris made to the rider interface. That was the big focal point for the 2022 model run. This Matryx chassis, Polaris really refined and redefined how they wanted the rider interface to feel for a snowmobile. So what they ended up doing was they shortened the seat height-wise and they moved it forward. So you've got a lot more seating up on here. It's actually a longer seat than the Axis chassis had, but it's lower and it actually goes back less. So this brings you forward, but it also gives you a lot of movement ability to be able to kick your leg from side to side on these sleds, doing that hop over, and it's gonna keep you from snagging on that seat. Now, a big thing they also did was they thinned it up. They thinned up the seat, they thinned up the gas tank, they thinned up this whole rider interface, and they actually said on the launch video of this that they were trying to make it feel more like a dirt bike. They wanted more range of motion for the rider so that you can get into that perfect body positioning while you're on the mountain, so that you can make sure to get this sled to go exactly where you want it. They wanted the rider to be able to kind of get after it, jump side to side, be aggressive, hop around this machine, and let the sled do what it needs to do as you put in the effort. Now they also moved the entire panel forward. This gives it so that you can really move forward on this sled without having any worry about hitting. Like, you can really get over the bars on this thing and not have to worry about hitting your knees all that much, especially considering that the outgoing chassis had your panels about right here. So you came in contact with them really quick, and they talked about how this was really focused off of their snowcross efforts. Again, they wanted the rider to be able to move around a lot more. What they also did on this machine is, to go along with this rider interface, they redesigned their tow hook. I love using tow hooks, and the Axis chassis had my favorite tow hooks in the industry. They made it better this year. You've got 3 different positions that you can move this tow hook. If you've got big feet in those big snow boots that you're gonna be rocking on these sleds, you can give it more room. If you got smaller feet like me, I'm a size 8, I can bring this thing down and still have all the contact patch that I need for my toes. Now, a big thing they also did was they thinned up these panels. Now, why would you thin up a panel on a snowmobile? They don't want you to panel out, as it's called. So when you're holding a side hill, you don't want to drag that panel along the snow, because that's going to push you more upright, and especially as you're holding a side hill, that's going to make it more difficult to hold the line that you want. So they really thinned up these panels to make sure that you can pick and hold any line that you want, regardless of how crazy the side hill is. And you really do feel that. That's way cool. Now, as we move back on this sled, we've got to talk about this new one-piece tunnel. This one-piece tunnel is a work of art. Polaris did a great job of it. With the Matryx compared to the Axis tunnel, this tunnel is actually 3 inches shorter, and it's also tapered a lot more than the Axis chassis had. And the reason that you're doing that is when you're holding that side heel, that tunnel is gonna start acting like a brake, and it's gonna start holding up on the snow. And as it holds up on the snow, your track actually, as it unloads, if your tunnel's hooking up in the snow, it's holding your track away from the snow so you can't get as much grip. So they really tapered this and shortened it to make sure that you're not dragging that tunnel and causing you to lose traction, which will cause you to kind of step out of that line that you're trying to hold. Now, if you really wanted a shorter tunnel, so again, this is 3 inches shorter than the Axis tunnel. They also had a snow check only option. We've actually got 3 of those here to pick from. Hurry if you want one. But they were the Matryx Slash, and they're an additional 5 inches shorter than even this one. That's a huge difference. Now, as we talk about this tunnel, another big thing that we do have to talk about is their new cooling system. Now, Polaris really wanted to do 2 things. They wanted to move the weight more centralized, and they also wanted to try to save weight throughout your ride day. So what they did here was the old Axis chassis, they used to have the heat exchanger under the tunnel, and it went pretty far back. This new heat exchanger stops about right here. So you've got your heat exchanger right here, bringing all of that weight forward and all of that liquid forward. But they also said a big thing that really helped accomplish was where you didn't have the heat exchanger up here, your tunnel wasn't heating up as much, which wasn't causing the snow to stick and freeze and build up and build up and build up. And they said that saved a lot of weight at the end of the ride day. So as you rode through with this new cooling system, as you went through your day, this thing wasn't getting that ice and snow buildup that you saw on a lot of the Axis chassis. This all stayed pretty well bare on the bottom side and on the top side, which was pretty cool. Staying to the back of this machine, we got to talk about the new rear suspension. Now, this does have the same skid that the Axis chassis had, so they didn't mess with a good thing in that regard. But a big thing that they did do is they refined the suspension geometry. So they changed the pitch of how this thing is going to articulate as it goes through the stroke. And the reason they did that was to actually more so control the pitch of the machine as you're accelerating. This is going to sag a lot less. So it's going to keep more of that weight on that front end even when you're on full throttle. So that's going to make the rear end actually feel a little bit more planted because there's not as much weight bias, but it's also going to make your front end feel a little bit more solid. So this new rear suspension geometry is really going to help make you feel even that much more confident and comfortable while you're pushing your limits out in the backcountry. Now, as you look at this suspension, this does come with those awesome Walker Evans shocks. If you wanted upgrades, again, if you snow check, you can get the Walker Evans with the piggyback reservoir. But even these standard needle shocks are a great shock setup. And they're gonna give you a lot of comfort, a lot of bump absorption to allow you to push your limits on this awesome sled. These shocks, they do have the preload adjustability right off the bat, so you can set this ride up to your weight and your style. And that's gonna really help you feel, again, more comfortable, more confident. Now we'll move to the front and talk about that suspension as well. All right, so the front suspension on this machine is another spot where Polaris just fine-tuned just a little bit. They didn't want to mess with a good thing too awfully much because, again, their front suspension, their front setup has really had rave reviews over the last several years on the Axis platform. Now, this sled does still have their React front suspension setup. It's adjustable on your ski stance from 36 inches wide to 38 inches wide, depending on if you want that narrower, more tippy feel, or if you want it to feel a little bit more planted. And this suspension, again, you've got this awesome Walker Evans shock with great preload adjustability. And these shocks, they're rebuildable, and man, they're just a great overall package when it comes to just a stock standard sled. Now, granted, again, if you want the upgrade, snow check one, get that awesome piggyback reservoir shock setup. But this sled right here, you've got these forged A-arms. They're gonna hold up quite well as long as you're not bouncing off the trees and the rocks too awfully much. So this is a great setup. You've got awesome strong spindles that, again, give you a nice little bit of a pick-me-up when it comes to giving you ground clearance. And then they do have this sway bar right here that helps your front end feel a little bit more planted. Now I have seen quite a few riders on the Axis chassis that ended up taking off the sway bar links to give it a little bit more of that tip feel. I haven't talked to many people that have done it on the Matryx chassis yet, but that is still a possibility. Nice and easy, 2 bolts on one side or the other, or both, and you can take off those sway bar links to give you a little bit more of that tip nature from this front end. Great skis, great suspension. Polaris did a really good job with this Matryx platform, and they looked over every item on the chassis, giving it upgrades from the Axis, but again, a big thing was that focus on the rider feel. Now we will talk about the motor just a little bit. If you're curious about this 850 Patriot, I also had a video that I put out earlier in the year that talked about the Axis. We talked about this 850 Patriot motor quite a bit in that video, but to kind of give you just a little bit of an idea, this 850 motor is solid. The Patriot the first year had a couple issues, little teething issues in that first year, but Polaris has really figured this out. This Patriot has great throttle response, great initial feel to that throttle to allow you to really be able to feel connection to what your thumb is telling this sled to do to what the track is actually allowing the sled to do. Awesome, awesome feel. And then the mid-range and the top end of this thing, it's an exhilarating motor. If you're racing in the non-turbo class, or if you really don't need that huge turbo punch, this motor is gonna give you all the thrills that you could possibly want while still giving you good fuel economy and great reliability. Polaris really has figured out this Polaris 850. Thank you so much for watching this video as we talked about this Matryx from Polaris. This is an awesome sled, and we would love to get you hooked up with one of these. Do not miss out. Again, we got Christmas in July coming. This is gonna be an awesome opportunity to make sure that you get onto a new sled for this coming winter season. I'm not kidding you. Everything's been a deposit game. Everything's been delayed. This is a great chance, and you don't wanna miss out. These Polarises are awesome. Thank you so much for watching this video. We appreciate you watching these videos that we've been putting out here at Rexburg Motorsports. And if you would, consider hitting that thumbs up button and subscribe. We would love to keep you up to date with all of the cool content that we've got coming out here at Rexburg Motorsports and give you all of those shopping tools on all of the machines that we do have here. Again, here at Rexburg Motorsports, we've got 10 lines. We can get you hooked up with anything that you could possibly want. If there's a machine that you'd be interested in learning more about, let us know in the comments below. Don't miss out on this Christmas in July sale that we're gonna have at Rexburg Motorsports. If you're wanting a Polaris sled, these things are gonna go super fast. And truthfully, I don't think anything's gonna change for this winter. I think we're gonna hit delays. We're gonna hit those rough spots. If you're wanting a sled, start now. We are going to love to get you out on the snow for this new season, and you're gonna wanna do it on a new Polaris, or a Skidoo, or an Arctic Cat. We got you covered, or a Yamaha even. We got one of those back here too. Thanks again for watching. Have a great day.